I can confidently say this TV has a beautiful, even impressive picture, but is that enough? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and last I met the Sony X95K, it was at Sony's HQ in San Diego back in February of 2022. And admittedly, that time was split between the X95K and Sony's A95K, which, let's all be honest, was deserving of all my attention at the time. Anyway, here we are. I have the X95K in our lab, and I've been able to do a deeper dive on this TV. And I've also had the benefit of having spent some time with some competing TVs, and that's helped shape my perspective. So I'm excited to share what I've learned so far and ideally help you make an informed purchase decision. Before I dive into the details, and this video really is about the details, you know the drill. Click down below if you enjoyed this video. Your support means a lot. Also, as I record this, we are well on our way to making 1 million subscribers in 2022, but I need your continued support. So tell a friend, bring them along. Let's have a chat in the comments. I'll see you there. Also, and this is super important, let's take a moment to talk about pricing. The X95K, which is Sony's flagship 4K LED TV, is available in 65, 75, and 85-inch sizes at roughly $2,800, $3,800, and $5,500 respectively. To put that in context, Samsung's competing 4K flagship, the QN90B, is $2,600, $3,000, and $4,500 for the same sizes. So the Samsung is anywhere from $200 to $1,000 less at the moment. I know these things change over time, but for now, that's where we are. Let's take it one step further. The LG G2 OLED TV is priced at $3,200, $4,200, and $6,500, although to be clear, that's 65, 77, and 83 inches, slightly different sizes, but comparable and clearly more expensive than the X95K here across the board by anywhere from $400 to $1,000. So what we have here is the X95K flagship 4K LED TV costing a bit more than the competing Samsung QN90B, but significantly less than a competing OLED TV like the LG G2. And I think that means that we could fairly expect that the X95K would be a nice step up from the Samsung QN90B, but still fall short of the total performance of a TV like the LG G2. To go a step further, based on history anyway, we would expect that the Sony would be a bit more refined in some regards compared to the Samsung QN90B, and that it would get significantly brighter than the LG G2. But its black levels and total contrast would fall short of the LG G2's performance. If all those things were true, then I think it would be easy to see the Sony X95K's place in the premium TV market today. Thing is, the competition is super close right now, and I don't think that the X95K's position is as clearly spelled out as it would be if we were having this chat in, say, 2020. I'm gonna spell all that out clearly in a moment, but first, let's talk about the X95K's performance a bit. First order of business, numbers for Nit-Nerds. Now, if you're not familiar with my reviews, this is where I dig into some of the measurement data for my TV enthusiast audience. If that sounds like a snore to you, no problem, you can skip ahead to the next section using the timecode links down in the description. Now, I was a bit surprised, to be honest with you. My measurements at Sony headquarters were actually lower than what I got here in my lab. Now, previously, using Calman and a C2 meter profiled to an X-Rite i1 Pro 2, I had clocked the X95K's peak brightness at right around 1500 nits. This time, in HDR at D65 white point, 10% window, I got just over 1700 nits. Now, it's not a lot more than I got before, but it is more and worth mentioning. Full screen white came in at right about 600 nits, so very impressive overall. Dolby Vision, even more impressive from a numbers perspective. I got higher peak brightness readings from 1% all the way up to full screen white, although the biggest difference was in the smaller windows leading up to 10%, and then almost no difference at full screen white. Once again though, while these measurements might suggest a super bright TV all the time, it's definitely more nuanced than that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, I was able to get very impressive black level measurements from dark boxes adjacent to white boxes, indicating that very impressive backlight control is in place. But again, things end up being more nuanced than that. As for color, no surprises there. DCI P3 color gamut coverage came in at 95%, and BT 2020 coverage came in at 72%, almost exactly what I got before, and still a little bit lower than I was expecting given the brightness measurements, but far from disappointing in my opinion. So from a metrics perspective, the X95K is impressive, but let's put the tools aside and talk about what I gathered from just using this TV over the past several days. without a doubt, the X95K is an impressive, highly enjoyable TV. Very much a flagship quality 4K LED TV. It's bright and punchy with impressive overall contrast. It has excellent motion handling, impressive upscaling, minimal banding and low bitrate streaming content, solid color performance. I mean, I think most folks who buy this TV will be thrilled with it. So why do you sense a but coming? Because, well, there's a few buts. I mentioned earlier that the competition is stiff. And if you compare the Sony X95K to the Samsung QN90A or the newer QN90B, you can see that the Samsung models do some things better than the Sony, while the Sony has strengths over the Samsung in others. Let's talk about blooming, for instance. What blooming there is on the X95K around bright objects on dark backgrounds is pretty minimal and definitely not distracting like TVs from just 2 years ago. Yes, you can see the black letterbox bars graying out a little at times, especially with subtitles turned on. If you'll look for it, you will see it, but you have to look for it. Like for most folks just sitting and enjoying TV, even in a really dark room, the backlight performance is not distracting. It's pretty impressive, actually. That is, of course, if you sit right in front of the TV. The off-axis performance is not nearly as good. Now, if you put this TV side by side with the Samsung QN90A or QN90B, and I will be doing that soon, I think we're gonna see the QN90B offering less blooming and slightly better off-axis performance. Thing is, I have seen the X95K side by side with the QN90A, and the Samsung had less blooming, but the trade-off was its peak highlights and average picture level actually tracked lower than the X95K. However, I suspect that the QN90B has reached a balance between blooming control and brightness that is really gonna challenge the X95K here. The QN90B likely offers very strong competitive performance at a lower price. So I think we need to see that comparison for those who are super choosy about picture performance. Then, if we take something like the LG G2 into account, I think LG's flagship OLED is gonna offer even more impressive contrast and saturation because, well, it's an OLED for one, and because it can get brighter than any WRGB OLED in the past. That's an attractive proposition considering there was really no competition for a flagship 4K LED TV in terms of HDR brightness, not before. Of course, you'll have to pay up for something like the G2. I mean, from a cost consideration perspective, it's really not at all a fair comparison. But the fact that the LG G2 punches so hard in the brightness category complicates the decision for hardcore picture quality enthusiasts who are willing to spend a bit more to get that much better performance. And then we have to consider gaming. Let's be perfectly frank here. While I do think the Sony X95K looks gorgeous for most gameplay, as soon as you start kicking into variable refresh rate or VRR territory, you lose the local dimming. Now, here's what that looks like on Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5. On the left is no VRR with local dimming, and on the right is with VRR and no local dimming. I mean, I'll let the images speak for themselves. Honestly, I just wouldn't even engage VRR on this TV, and should that really be a compromise you have to make on a TV that costs this much and is the flagship 4K LED TV from a company like Sony? I'm sorry, but my stance on that is no. Again, to be super clear, most people playing console games aren't super hardcore enthusiasts, and I think they're gonna be perfectly pleased with the X95K for casual gaming. I'm not a hardcore gamer, and I think most of the time I'd enjoy playing games casually on the X95K. But the enthusiast crowd is gonna want something better. And if you count yourself among that crowd, go check out some more gaming-specific X95K videos. There's several out there already. I always advocate getting several reviewers' takes when making a big purchase decision anyway. So, while I think the X95K is an excellent TV and that most folks would be thrilled to own one, I mean, it's one of the best you can get for watching movies and TV shows, be it in a dark room or a bright room. Those who want the absolute best for their individual use will want to take a look at the competition and see how the X95 compares side by side with the likes of the Samsung QN90B, for instance. The race is super tight, and I actually think that's a great thing. It's good to have such awesome choices. It just makes the final decision a little bit more arduous, but you know what? That's what I'm here to help with. So, comparisons coming between the X95K and comparably priced TVs. I think the X95K definitely has an audience. Now, we just need to identify this audience. Shortlist this TV though, and look forward to what comes next. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. What do you want to see the X95K compared to first? Leave me a comment about that down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and here's 2 other videos I think you'll like.